Chapter 480. The Marine headquarters was no different from the past, but it was more solemn. The promotion of the fleet admiral during the Sengoku period was not as prosperous as imagined. The outside world didn't even know the most basic news. It was extremely low-key, and only the soldiers of the Marine headquarters knew the inside story. The soldiers on guard stared with their eyes wide open. Today was the day when the fleet admiral was replaced. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the sharp sound of breaking the air suddenly resounded through the sky. The harsh sharp sound made the soldiers' ears stuffy. They subconsciously looked up and saw a straight beam of light coming from the distant sky. A strong wind blew head-on, and in just a short time, a young man in a white coat appeared out of thin air. Taking a closer look, it was Wu Chen who rushed over in a hurry. "Who is it?" A group of Marines glared and pointed their guns at the mysterious intruder. They stared at Dustless fiercely. On such an important day, someone dared to invade the Marine headquarters. They were about to pull the trigger in their hands when a tall figure stopped their actions. "Vice Admiral Sakazuki, this guy is an intruder." A group of Marines looked at the sudden appearance of Vice Admiral Sakazuki, and the battle instantly value report. The news that the future Sakazuki, Akainu, will be promoted to an admiral of the Marine headquarters has spread. There are even rumors that Sakazuki, Akainu, already has the strength to be on par with an admiral, but his age and qualifications have not reached the level of an admiral. "Put down the gun, or you will die." Looking at Dustless, Sakazuki said indifferently. The rolling hoarse voice did not have human emotions. It was no different from steel. The Marines who raised their guns looked at each other and put down their guns. "Please." Turning sideways, Sakazuki made an inviting gesture to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless nodded silently and walked away under the stunned gaze of the Marines. The dark-skinned Akainu with a hat followed closely behind. Only a group of petrified Marines were left, staring at each other. In the heavily guarded corridor, Marines could be seen standing guard only a few meters apart. They looked meticulous, and at first glance, they were the elites of the elites. Sakazuki, Akainu, raised its eyes and looked at Dustless, who was alone in front of it. The surprise and confusion in its eyes were clearly visible. The highest level meeting of the Navy, even if he is a celestial dragon, it has nothing to do with him. After thinking about it, Sakazuki didn't guess the purpose of Dustless. Usually, when the Tenryubito is beaten, the Marine Admiral will come out. Dustless was not beaten, but he came to the Marine headquarters without being beaten. He was really puzzled. In particular, the current meeting was extraordinary. Even the vice admirals of the Marine may not be eligible to participate. Then he nodded towards Dustless and pointed to the remaining position on the sofa, motioning Dustless to sit there. Seeing everyone seated, Sengoku ordered his assistant to hand each of the documents on the table, and then drank the boiling tea in the cup, as if this was the only way to suppress the anger in his heart. No wonder Sengoku is so secretive. After carefully browsing the contents of the document, Dustless knew why Sengoku's face was so ugly. These people's courage is really extraordinary, and their practice is really provocative, which is tantamount to slapping the face of the new fleet admiral. In an instant, he understood what Admiral Kong meant. "What you said is true." Admiral Kong's words made Sengoku suddenly enlightened, and he secretly scolded him for his ignorance. Before he fell into a blind spot of thought, in fact, he could find another shortcut. Pirates can choose not to join the 7 warlords of the sea, but their own people can temporarily fill in. Juroko Mihawk, the man with the nickname Hawkeye, can be temporarily stuffed into this organization. Anyway, he is also a pirate, and he can make an example to the pirates of the world. Chapter 482. Dustless already knew that he couldn't stay out of it and he could no longer keep a low profile. Moreover, he is a Tenryuzu, and several people present know that. The 3 future generals have seen Dustless, and they must know his identity as a Tenryuzu. Marine Hero Garp, Sengoku and Air Commander, including Vice Admiral Tsuru, all know dustless. Deliberate disguise will only increase the ridicule. Although Hawkeye will not question my orders, this involves his personal affairs. I can only say that I will try my best. His own choice has nothing to do with me. The void splashed with ripples, and Dustless's voice came out, giving an ambiguous answer. Hawkeye doesn't join the 7 warlords of the sea. It doesn't matter to Wu Qin, it's just up to him. Hearing this, Sengoku's lonely heart was barely at ease. As long as Wu Qin opened his mouth to help, it would be fine. He had just been appointed as the marshal, and there were twists and turns. Even if his nerves were made of iron, he could not bear it. The big pirates who received the invitation to become Shichibukai before, including Chinjo and other influential figures, adopted the same means. After slaughtering the Marine sent in the past, they racked their brains to ridicule him as the new fleet admiral. That Chinjo is really vengeful. I just dented his head and he still hates me. Garp's nerve was quite big, full of innocence. He just performed his duty as a righteous soldier, but he didn't expect to be hated by Chinjo. However, this innocent remark was met with a roar of anger from Sengoku. Garp, you bastard, if you were willing to be an admiral, none of this would have happened. Staring at the legendary hero, Sengoku's last roar turned into a long sigh and a wry smile. From the moment he joined the Marine, he and Garp were close teammates. While appreciating each other, they were also competitors. It wasn't until Garp refused to be promoted to admiral that all this stopped. Otherwise, it might not be him who became the fleet admiral. From the looks of it, Garp was the final victor. He was living his life happily. With the end of Garp's speech, the serious atmosphere in the office also relaxed. This was also what Sengoku was happy to see. Garp could play such a mysterious role every time, which could relieve the depression during the meeting. As for Dustless, everyone ignored him for a while. Green Pepper. I didn't expect him to be one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Dustless thought to himself with some surprise in his dark pupils. Cone Green Pepper was also one of the legendary great pirates. His strength was unfathomable, and his reputation was well known. His iron head technique had reached the acme of perfection. As the saying goes, people are afraid of fame and pigs are afraid of being fat. In the end, because of his fame, he finally met his strongest enemy, the hero of the Navy, Vice Admiral Garp. Chapter 483. Dustless's thoughts turned back, and he suddenly thought of the extraordinarily beautiful and graceful woman. Princess Odoheim always had a sad look, which was reflected in the dark pupils of Dustless's pupils. If he remembered correctly, not long after, this kind, beautiful, and sentimental princess consort would pass away. Even if she dies, I will squeeze out her last value. With a cold smile on his face, Dustless secretly decided. He made up his mind that on the day of Princess Odoheim's death, he will rescue her from the cage without leaving a trace, so that Shirahoshi can be used again at a certain time when she awakens Sea King's ability in the future. Shirahoshi's birth has nothing to do with Dustless. Only through the card of Princess Odoheim, she will be dependent on him, so that he can better control this destructive Sea King in the future. Sea King's ability is very exaggerated. He can summon Sea Kings with a volume of more than 5,000 meters. In this world where the Sea Kings are rampant, there is no doubt that they are the absolute overlord. Even if it's a 5,000-meter insect, it will cause a landslide, not to mention the powerful Sea King. While Dustless was daydreaming, this boring meeting also came to an end. The content was quite simple. Since some big pirates are afraid of the government, they can only hire someone else. This is also the result of a helpless situation. The admirals of the Marine headquarters are already extinct. Sakazuki, Akainu, Kozo, Akiji, and Borsellino, Kizaru, will soon become the new 3 admirals. The only flaw is that the current 3 admirals are not qualified enough. it will be difficult for them to be promoted to admiral. Some people with ulterior motives will inevitably fan the flames. The crowd left the conference room one after another, and in the blink of an eye, there were only a few people left. Dustless was about to leave quietly, but an unexpected figure suddenly pulled his thin arm. Looking back, it was Fleet Admiral Sengoku. "There's something I have to tell you clearly," Sengoku said with a serious look. Hearing this, Dustless nodded slightly. Just listening to Sengoku's heavy voice, he knew that it was not a trivial matter. Since Kaido escaped from the hands of the Marine again, he began to rapidly expand his base in the New World and attacked the Marine base unscrupulously, deliberately retaliating against the Marine. Sengoku said with a little tiredness. Now it's an eventful time. Bad news comes to his ears every day. General Kong also nodded cautiously. The reason why the warring states were reluctant to establish the 7 warlords of the sea, and now hoped to establish it as soon as possible, was the biggest factor. Kaido, that tough guy, is now listed as the most powerful big pirates by the world, together with Whitebeard AI from the New World, Big U's mom, and Red Hair, that kid who came later. They are all given a collective title. After Dustless kicked the door of the conference room into pieces, he rushed out of the door with a black line hanging on his head. Only Sengoku and Fleet Admiral Kong were left with a bitter smile on their faces. It is indeed impossible for Dustless, a dignified Tenryubito, to be a lab rat for Vegapunk. However, as Dustless said before he left, he can only take a step back. There is always Borsellino. Gritting her teeth, Huey sneered, "Or are you saying that you're such a useless man that you can only use such despicable methods to threaten me?" Huey G's impression of Dustless could only be described with one word: terrible. Using despicable methods to seize her most important thing, despicable to the extreme. What annoyed Huey G the most was that this brat was too shameless. All kinds of unbearable methods, Dustless was used to it. "Your heart." Dustless showed a surprised expression for the first time, and then said jokingly, "Your heart. This kind of luxury is too small for me, so I don't need it. Compared to your body, I prefer the latter. So, I just want your body. As for your heart, it's dispensable." As soon as the words fell, what hit back at Dustless was a sky full of fist shadows. The sky was filled with countless fists that could blow up mountains. At this moment, Huey G was completely infuriated by Dustless. The goddess of a generation was ridiculed by a mortal again and again. Although this mortal could be on par with her, or even surpass her, Huey G's chest was filled with blazing flames. And it burst out uncontrollably. The fist shadows condensed in the void turned from nothingness to reality. The power was infinite, and it turned into an earth-shattering crush. Dustless, who was alone, was particularly weak and powerless. 80 God's air attack. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head with a wry smile. This scene again. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. It's impossible for me to develop feelings over time. I'll talk about it in the future. This kind of violent and direct method is more suitable for me. The ability of the glistening fruit was activated, and a gorgeous luster appeared all over his body. Dustless was about to use elementalization to ignore this destructive fist. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind, and the elementalization was stopped. This is a good opportunity to take the opportunity to see how powerful that is. With a smile on his face, Dustless looked forward to it. She thought that Dustless would activate his ability to be immune to the 80 God's air attack, but now it seemed that was not the case. Of course, she would not think that Dustless suddenly realized that he owed her too much and chose to die under her hands. Her small white hand gently tapped the void, and a strange weapon with an unknown depth appeared out of thin air and landed on Dustless's body. This mysterious unknown weapon froze the void. What an evil thing. Looking at the strange weapon in Dustless's hand cautiously, Huey G smelled danger. This is the ability I recently obtained. This thing is called the parting sword, staring at the strongest sword in the gate of Babylon, in his hand, and then calmly looking at the fist shadows whistling over. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and the parting sword in his hand also whistled down. Whoosh! A scarlet storm suddenly shot out, easily crushing the void. It was unstoppable like a tiger out of the cage. The moment it came into contact with the thousands of fists, the two disappeared between heaven and earth. It was just that the remaining power fluctuations were terrifying. The void was torn apart again when it was repaired. Such a cycle, the scene was very shocking. When you can really accept me, I will let you out. With that, Dustless's body disappeared from the system space forever, leaving only Huiji who was watching the void explode. Mariewa, Dustless, who was lying on the couch, opened his eyes. Behind him, a figure had been waiting for a long time. What is your choice, Hawkeye? What Blackbeard wanted was the power rock, which was comparable to ancient weapons. Presumably, when the Yonko, for emperors, used the power rock to cause the volcano to shake, Blackbeard saw the power that was enough to blow up an island. With the power rock, his dreams and ambitions have gone further. Pirates are greedy, unifying the world, chasing the other side of the dream. This kind of unrealistic dream, ambitious people like Blackbeard also have it. Compared with those pirates who talk big, Blackbeard pays more attention to practical actions. It's impossible for him to touch the power rock with his ability. The power rock is not cabbage on the roadside. On that island, the world government has a large number of elites stationed there. Dustless softly agreed. When the power rock reaches a certain level, it is enough to destroy the world. There must be powerful people in the world government or the marine. Some things can be done as long as you stop dreaming. It's just a moth to the flame. The only thing that Dustless is curious about is the use of the power rock. He shouldn't be as crazy as Z, planning to destroy the entire sea with it. Boo-hoo, just as Dustless was daydreaming, the phone in his arms suddenly rang. He frowned slightly and immediately took out the white special Den Mushi, which he often used to communicate with Sengoku. What is his choice, yes or no? Before Dustless could speak, Sengoku's slightly expectant voice came in advance. Dustless glanced at Hawkeye when he heard the words. After the latter nodded resolutely, he whispered, Hawkeye has agreed to join the Shichibukai force. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief and his heart was like a stone sinking into the sea. He was happy and was about to praise Dustless when the latter's words made him almost fall off the sofa. Blackbeard, that is, a member of the pirates under Whitebeard, seems to have reached the power rock. The content from the other side of the Den Mushi made Sengoku's mind as if it was burnt and blank. As a Marine Fleet Admiral, how could he not know the danger of the power rock? The Marine headquarters was affected by the explosion of the power rock, and it was a big question mark whether it could exist. Is the news reliable? Also, how could a mere crew member know a secret that Whitebeard may not know? Sengoku's relaxed heart tightened again, and he doubted. The power rock is a secret weapon, and the government and the Marine have done excellent confidentiality measures. It is only limited to the internal high-level understanding. Now that an ordinary pirate under Whitebeard knows about it, how can Sengoku not be surprised? I don't know the specific content. I can only tell you that his name is Marshal D. Tich. Fleet Admiral Sengoku, who was far away in the Marine headquarters, heard the word D, and his face suddenly became gloomy. Outsiders don't understand the meaning of D, but as a Marine headquarters Fleet Admiral, Sengoku knows what it means. In general, a person with D in his name is a person who can create miracles infinitely. This can also be used well to teach Whitebeard's pirates a lesson. Sengoku's mind suddenly flashed and he smiled. Because the government can add fuel to the fire, the 7 warlords of the sea, made the whole world boil in a short time and became the after-dinner gossip of the pirates of the major sea. On a sunny afternoon, on the sparkling surface of the sea, a huge ship slowly moved forward. The unique white flag was known to all. It was the world government's battleship. The world government is synonymous with holiness. Inside such a sacred and solemn world government ship, this time it was a different scene. A group of evil pirates talked and laughed, talking about their heroic deeds in the past with each other, and sometimes there would be laughter. Sengoku looked gloomily at several figures on the deck in the distance. The power gathered in his hand was enough to disintegrate the big ship under his feet in an instant, but he always kept silent. After a moment of contemplation, the powerful force that was ready to be unleashed collapsed. Today's Marine is in a dilemma. They can only rely on the strength of these pirates to deter the world. It's ridiculous that the Marine, who has always been known as absolute justice, has to rely on the power of pirates one day. Sengoku, when will you fulfill the condition of me joining the Shichibukai? A powerful low voice came, with a little eagerness. You'd better not deceive me, otherwise, everyone will die. Looking at the place where the voice sounded, a blue-skinned fisherman suddenly came into view. Looking closely, it was Jinbi, who is now known as Knight of the Sea. When Dustless caught Boa Hancock, he didn't find this guy. The fishman has an unparalleled advantage in the sea. Even Dustless can only look and sigh. After escaping, Jinbi returned to the Fishman Island. Dustless's overwhelming strength was vivid in his mind. He was crushed like an ant and deeply stimulated. In the following days, Jinbi carried out crazy self-training and his strength was qualitatively improved. Later, he went to the New World and became famous for a time. Then he was invited by the world government to join the emerging pirate organization Shichibukai. At first, Jinbi didn't think about it and simply refused. His big brother Jinbi and a group of fisherman brothers were caught by the world government. How could he join this organization and collude with the world government? But then the government promised that the condition of becoming a Shichibukai was that he could bail out all the imprisoned Murlocs except Tiger. Thinking about it carefully, Jinbi also joined this organization. The conditions made by the Marine will naturally be fulfilled. Don't compare the righteous Marine with your evil pirates. Sengoku looked at Jinbi impatiently, the disgust in his eyes was obvious. Even if these pirates promised to be loyal to the Marine for the time being, he couldn't be happy. Even if Jinbi was a pirate with a conscience, he was still a pirate from beginning to end. After becoming a Shichibukai, their past sins couldn't be washed away, and with the privileges they had after becoming a Shichibukai, their sins were deeper. Sengoku could only force himself to be in the same boat with these scum. Fortunately, Mariajoa was close at hand. At this moment, an unexpectedly strong and tall figure suddenly stepped down from the battleship. As he walked, he trembled and swayed from side to side. It was a little funny, but no one, including Wu Qin, dared to look down on him. Staring at the figure that suddenly appeared, Dustless's pupils dilated. He didn't remember that the monster in front of him joined the Shichibukai organization at this time. Chapter 489. His body is burly, his shape is similar to that of a big bear, and his height is also huge. When he walks from side to side, he even has a strange illusion. With a height of nearly 7 meters, he looks like a shaking hill. Every time his footsteps land, there will be a slight vibration on the ground. Bear's momentum is extremely terrible and gloomy. Thinking of his past coldness, anyone who faces him will be terrified. Combined with this majestic body, it is full of deterrence. Bartholomew Bear. This guy will enter Shichibukai later. The current members of Shichibukai have nothing to do with him. The sudden change made Dustless's eyebrows solidify, and an absurd idea quietly rose in Dustless's mind. Did he find out that I controlled Dorag? The only reason Dustless can think of is this, which may be the fundamental reason why Bartholomew Bear joined Shichibukai. Impossible, this kid can't find out that I tampered with Dragon's memory at his level. Slightly, Dustless still shook his head, he still has doubts about this. Using Tenseigan to modify Dorag's memory is completely undetectable. Even if Bear's means are powerful, he can't detect it. He doesn't have the ability to know it all. In particular, Dustless did not make much change in Dorag's memory. He just changed his life goal to focus on ancient weapons, and his daily life and personality are the original him. While he was deep in thought, a gust of wind and sand suddenly floated in the void. Immediately, a sharp golden hook suddenly appeared behind Wuchen's head. The cold light flickered, and the cold murderous aura made the whole scene suddenly solidified. Crocodile, do you want to die, you bastard? Don't forget where you are. Seeing Crocodile's sudden attack, Sengoku's face was blue. These pirates were really shameless. When they were on the ship, they had already agreed to 3 rules. These big pirates also made guarantees that they would never do stupid things like taking advantage of the situation. Shrouded in a bright golden light, Sengoku did not hesitate to launch his fruit ability. When he tried to stop Crocodile, it was already too late. In such a short distance, Crocodile took the opportunity to attack. Sengoku could not deal with it. He could only watch the sharp iron hook sweep toward Dustless's neck. The person who can make Sengoku and Kazuko bow their heads should not be a fish in the pool. Hello, it's the first time we meet. My name is Crocodile. This is my gift. Seeing that Dustless's body was about to be separated, Crocodile laughed with a cigar in his mouth. Even if this is Mariewa, it can't stop him from killing people. As a pirate, he should be casual and not be bound by the mortal world's commandments. Letting nature take its course is only respected by the weak. Clang! A loud and clear sound rang out, and a faint ripple appeared in the air. Then, the sharp iron hook made of pure gold was tightly grasped by a pitch-black hand. Chapter 490. Dustless has the body of the Jubi and inherited everything that Kagaya should have. It also means that he also has the ability to regenerate without limit. Even if his body is separated and his limbs are broken, only half of his body is left, he can turn decay into magic and regenerate the broken limbs in a short period of time. This so-called deadly venom has no effect on Dustless at all, and even the most basic problems are difficult to deal with. Expecting venom to force Dustless to surrender, Crocodile's idea is really ridiculous and ignorant. In the hollow and transparent arm filled with purple venom, there was a majestic fluctuation of life, like ripples on the water surface, spreading throughout the arm in the blink of an eye. Immediately, it was clear that the dense blood vessels gushed out, and the purple venom swimming inside the arm was quickly squeezed and swallowed at a speed visible to the naked eye. A new body structure was reborn. How is this possible? Even Crocodile, who is used to all kinds of strange things in the world, is immune to all kinds of strange things in the world. His eyes widened and his face was stunned. The venom that can force Whitebeard to surrender, why doesn't it work on this guy? Everything has its vanquisher, your venom doesn't work on me. Turning his head, looking at Sand Crocodile calmly, Dustless really can't raise the slightest interest. He really didn't pay attention to Crocodile, although the latter has always been a powerful existence with courage and wisdom, has the ferocious attack power of a crocodile, and his character is as cunning as a fox. He is extremely tricky. Dustless can't raise the slightest interest in him. Crocodile, you'd better give this old man a reasonable explanation, otherwise, there will be a bounty criminal called Sand Crocodile in the 6th floor of Impel Down. Staring at Crocodile fiercely, Commander Kong warned in a cold voice. At the same time, his strong body suddenly bulged strangely, and the strong and powerful muscles bulged, and the surface of his skin exuded ferocious tendons. If Crocodile chooses to be perfunctory, Commander Kong will not hesitate to enter the state of armament hockey to capture Crocodile. Hearing this, Crocodile just calmly held the cigar in his mouth. The Marines have been dealing with pirates for many years, but you don't seem to have figured out the character of pirates. In the face of Air Commander's coercion, Crocodile showed no fear and sharply retorted, "Born free and easy, this is the nature of a pirate, this is the way of a pirate. Truth is nothing to pirates." This arrogant and crude conversation left everyone speechless. Dustless's performance is extraordinarily calm. This is the character and style of a pirate. 1 second, they can treat each other with sincerity and talk about the future with a heroic spirit. It was also possible that they could take your life in the next second. Such examples were not unique and could be found everywhere. All in all, pirates are a very contradictory group. For example, pirates like Roger, Whitebeard, and Red Hair Shanks are really pursuing the so-called dream, but this kind is a minority. Most pirates are in the name of pursuing their dreams, doing things like killing, burning, and looting. From a simpler point of view, there are 100 different ways to express the pirate dream in 100 pirates, all because their inner ideas are different. There is no right or wrong, there is only the strong and the weak, and the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. You are very confident, Mariewa, who is surrounded by tigers and wolves, has this kind of courage. His view of Crocodile changed slightly, and Dustless recognized him. This kind of calmness without fear of life and death is not a casual pretense, but a person's confidence. In other words, Crocodile is confident that he can slip out of the inescapable net laid by Dustless. But, his calm face outlined a chill, and the cold killing intent broke out of his body, and the flowing air was frozen, full of suffocating danger. Just between thoughts, it affected the temperature change. This guy's momentum is terrible. He is so young but unexpectedly strong. Cautiously guarding against Dustless, Crocodile's face was gloomy. In a trance, Crocodile's thinking changed dramatically. He was isolated from the world, in a land of ice and snow, surrounded by wind and snow, and there was no life. He is the only one with vitality, and he is about to be the next target waiting to be slaughtered. The world of ice and snow around him is an execution ground specially built for him, and there is no escape. Whiz! A cold wind suddenly blew in his face. Crocodile unconsciously shivered. His body reacted and instinctively wanted to escape. Just as he was about to retreat, he suddenly realized that his body had been imprisoned. The culprit was Wu Chen, who had a cold expression. Woo-woo, he intended to speak, but his throat was locked by a cold tender hand, and Crocodile was casually raised in the air by Dustless. The thin, willow-like arm was full of strength. Crocodile struggled hard, but it was better than the excessive strength. His face was red, and he breathed heavily, exhausting all his strength. Even so, he still couldn't get rid of the dark tender fingers. He was extremely powerless, and a sense of fragility from the depths of his soul arose spontaneously. A thoughtful man like you shouldn't blindly challenge me. What is your purpose? His right arm shook casually, Dustless asked, and at the same time, his right hand that was holding Crocodile's throat loosened a lot, so that he could wake up a little, at least he could speak. Using you to test whether my energy can swallow this sea. What do you think of this answer? In such an embarrassing situation, Crocodile still did not choose to compromise, and fearlessly smiled at Dustless. Looking at the arrogant Crocodile, Dustless finally threw him away ruthlessly. In the face of Crocodile's ridicule, he just answered with 4 simple words. Vulgar and boring. Chapter 491. The smoke and dust rose, the wind and waves rolled, and the ground pulled out a long and narrow gully. Boom! The large mountain left a large pit visible to the naked eye. Crocodile was powerlessly trapped in it. His pupils turned white and lost their luster. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. When Fleet Admiral Sengoku saw this scene, his heart tightened fiercely. He hated and even hated pirates. Everyone knows that, but at present, Crocodile's chess piece has not yet played its value and was easily solved by Dustless. It is a waste of such a good dog. Using the strength of the pirates to attack the pirates, so that the so-called 7 warlords of the sea will be spurned, and there will be no place for them on either side. I didn't kill him, and this kid is not so easy to kill. Shaking his head, Dustless gave Sengoku a look that said there is no need to worry. After all, he is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. No matter how fragile he is, it is impossible for him to be easily killed. Sengoku, did you invite us here to publicly insult us? Shion took the opportunity to attack. He had no good feelings for the marine. Even if he joined the Shichibukai, he had no choice. It was Crocodile who started first. Even if he was killed, that kid deserved it. No one forced him to do so. This is his own fault. Tyrant Shion distorted the facts in front of him and Admiral Sengoku sneered. His fists were clenched. If he only had slight hatred for Crocodile, for Bartholomew Shion, he could not wait to get rid of him. Shion hated the government and the marine. His nickname, Tyrant, was all the blood of the marine. The reason why Shion chose to support Crocodile was that he wanted to suppress the marine. In other words, it was an invisible demonstration. Caw caw caw, the crisp sound of stones shattering rang out, attracting everyone's attention. When they looked up, there was an additional hazy voice in the empty sand. Is it just a slight fracture? Dustless frowned as he looked across the sandstorm. A white smoke floated out of the sand, and then Crocodile came out of it with a cigar in his mouth. His head was covered with blood, but his fighting power was still there. What's so surprising? I have been in the New World for several years. How can I not know armament hockey? Looking viciously at Dustless, Crocodile said viciously. At the same time, he took a deep breath with lingering fear. Just now, if he hadn't used armament hockey in time to defend himself, even if he didn't die, he would have turned into a pile of minced meat. You're still far from being able to challenge me. Just glancing at Crocodile, Dustless left everyone with a view of his back. His ethereal figure turned into a gust of wind, coming and going without a trace. Even though the light of a firefly was as bright as light, it could not illuminate the entire void. Don't even think about leaving. Crocodile, who caught sight of Dustless, immediately turned into a tornado-shaped hurricane and chased after him. Obviously, he did not intend to let Dustless go easily. He was beaten black and blue all over, while the other party was perfectly fine. He couldn't bring himself to do that. Desert storm. Raising his hand, a strong tornado-shaped storm swept out. The rapidly rotating storm was no different from the sharp sword light, and the surrounding rock surface was left with deep pit marks. The messy traces were numbing and coincided with being cut by tens of thousands of sword hilts at the same time. It can be imagined that a human being composed of flesh and blood, once swallowed by this violent storm, would have a miserable end. I'm afraid that the best outcome would be to be cut into pieces. What's the use of this kind of fancy trick against me? In the blink of an eye, the desert storm swallowed Dustless's body. Under the high-speed flow of the storm, the wind turned into thousands of blades and attacked Dustless. Clang clang clang, inside the desert storm, the roar of steel continued, and sparkling sparks flew around Dustless. The 360-degree attack was almost impossible to defend against. There must be a limit. You Crocodile attacked me again and again. Do you really think I have a saint's heart that won't kill people? Dustless in the desert storm looked cold, surrounded by golden energy fluctuations. The evil golden light came from a distant world, and the power of this world couldn't shake it at all. Is it that weird trick again? Jinbe was silent, his huge iron fist closed, sweat stains fell to the ground along the gaps of his 5 fingers, and his eyes were faintly spread with red bloodlines. What weird thing? Crocodile's proud face froze, the smile on the corner of his mouth also froze, and then his face became gloomy. Looking at his line of sight, one could clearly see a golden evil head covering dustless. This substantial evil wave was soul-stirring, revealing a palpitating power. It was just a simple head, but its height reached a terrifying level of 6 or 7 meters. This monster doesn't seem to be in a complete state. Looking at the head of Tengu covering dustless, Crocodile said gloomily to himself. Even a tiny head was 6 to 7 meters tall. It was an exaggeration to say that it was almost 10 meters tall. One could imagine how huge it would be when all 4 of its limbs were present. Crocodile, you don't seem to have figured out one thing. His eyes were cold, and the majestic repulsion spewed out, and the desert storm, which was nearly 10 meters high, burst. Looking at the stunned crocodile, Dustless's murderous intent was even stronger. His left eye turned into Rinnegan Sharingan, his right arm was raised high, and his palm was aimed at the dazed crocodile. His eyes were locked on Dustless's left eye. The mysterious strange eye was full of indescribable magic. Crocodile's heart flashed, and he instinctively felt that something was wrong. As he was about to retreat, a majestic gravitational force shrouded him, and Dustless's mouth burst into a cold word. Wanxiang Tian Yu. Chapter 492. The seemingly pale and weak little hand spewed out an irresistible force. The flow of air was distorted by this gravitational force and was sucked back. In an instant, everyone present had an illusion that the ordinary-looking black hole in Wu Chen's palm was an absolute domain that could shake the whole world. Any ability was different from person to person. Although Dustless rarely used the 10,000 mammoth heaven summoning technique, it didn't have any difficulty in controlling it. For him, it was as simple as eating and drinking. The power it exerted was also far beyond the vortex gate. Idiot, no matter what ability you have, in front of gravity, you can only be helpless. Seeing that Crocodile was still struggling under the influence of gravity, Dustless sneered again and again. This guy is really hopeless. Gravity, the meaning of this word is not for nothing. Bastard, even a Logia user can be swallowed. Crocodile's face was pale, but he was still struggling to resist. Although this was the case, he was getting closer and closer to Dustless. Even if he elementalized and turned into countless sand, he was still attracted by the gravitational force. Even the surrounding space changed with this force. To some extent, gravity is the natural enemy of all creatures. The scope of this gravitational shroud is not very large, but it is surprisingly terrifying. The pure density is beyond imagination. Crocodile can't escape. Dustless's thin little hand is the hand of God. The helpless crocodile exhausted all his strength, but he couldn't avoid the gravitational force and slowly approached Dustless. In the blink of an eye, Dustless once again grabbed his throat. The same scene can be said to be an unexpected accident for the first time, but the second time, under the eyes of the public, he was defeated by overwhelming strength. Moreover, Dustless grabbed his throat in the same way. This is an unprecedented humiliation for Crocodile. At the moment, he began to struggle frantically. His face was red and his neck was thick. He struggled to shake his body. Even so, his neck was tightly bound. Only the lower half of his body was swaying. It was extremely difficult to breathe. This is the gap between us. No matter how you struggle to escape, Sun Wukong will never be able to escape from Tathagata's Five-Finger Mountain. Stupid Crocodile. Looking up at Crocodile, Dustless's clear eyes were finally replaced by contempt. Crocodile was just a kid who had not grown up and was not worthy of his attention. Bang! His hand loosened, and Crocodile fell to the ground. His eyes were scarlet and fierce. He was about to launch an attack on Dustless, but a ruthless foot cruelly suppressed him and made him unable to move. Bastard, I'll definitely tear you to pieces in the future. With his rough face against the ground, Crocodile lost his composure and roared hysterically at Dustless. After being suppressed 3 times in a row, even if he had a heart of steel, Crocodile was still furious. The flames that gathered from all directions had already burned his old face red. Idiot, the reason why you are so proud is nothing more than to escape from the strongest man in the world. Seeing Crocodile's self-esteem, Dustless responded with a sneer and sarcasm. Humph. Hearing this, Crocodile just snorted. He was silent and did not answer. From his comfortable face, it was clear that he was very proud to be able to escape from Whitebeard's hands. After all, Whitebeard is one of the 3 legendary pirates and is known as the strongest man in the world. Although he was defeated in the end, Crocodile was proud of his defeat. In particular, he was able to slip away from Whitebeard in the end, which also made him a little more arrogant in the face of pirates of the same level. Kid, you really are a kid. Don't you realize it yet? Seeing this, Wu-Chen sneered even more. He looked down at Crockstall, who was under his feet, and gave him a hopeless look before smirking coldly. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. Whitebeard admires your fearlessness. Of course, maybe he's moved by compassion and wants to turn you into one of his army of sons. You're so extraordinary at such a young age, and you dare to challenge the strongest person. I'm sure Whitebeard admires you very much. In short, today, in my opinion, you want to escape from Whitebeard. It is tantamount to a fool's dream. Coldly and ruthlessly attacking Crocodile, although this kid is strong now, he has not reached the peak state in the future, and now Whitebeard is in the prime of his life. In the face of Whitebeard in the prime of his life, even an admiral can't escape death. The reason why he let this kid go, according to Dustless's personal speculation, is that Whitebeard appreciates his fearless attitude. Nonsense. Hearing this, Crocodile retorted angrily. How can he be calm when it comes to his dignity? Facts speak louder than words. You are so fragile, Crocodile. After glancing at him indifferently, Dustless said expressionlessly, then he lifted his right foot slightly and mercilessly kicked Crocodile. Boom! A black shadow swept out, and any obstacles in its way collapsed and annihilated instantly. It was as powerful as a tiger. With a loud roar, Crocodile's body slammed heavily on the mountain. Without looking at him, Dustless left. This kind of ant that he is not interested in, even if he kneels down and begs for death, he will not dirty his hands. Bastard, bastard, kill me if you have the guts. The blood in his lungs was boiling, and Crocodile's voice trembled as he gritted his teeth and roared. The shame that Dustless gave him was unforgettable, and it left a shadow in his heart that he could not get rid of. Kill you. I said, you don't deserve it. His footsteps paused, and he glanced at Crocodile from the corner of his eyes. Then Wu-Chen swaggered away. His figure silently said that Crocodile's value was as light as dust, not worth mentioning. Idiot, which adult and immature kid would know? Chapter 493. The distant sigh resounded through the dark night, leaving only Crocodile with a stunned face. His gray pupils stared straight at the gradually disappearing sea level. After a long while, his heart also changed quietly. His eyes stared at Wu-Chen's back. His dark eyes were filled with blood vessels, and it was hazy. If I don't take revenge, I swear I'm not a man. Waiting for Dustless to completely disappear, Crocodile's murderous aura burst out and then whistled out, covering every inch of the surroundings. The flowers and trees were frozen in a few seconds, and then a gust of evening wind blew and slowly dismembered and withered. What a foolish man. He actually wants to challenge Louis South, Saint. Commander Kong and Sengoku looked at each other and shook their heads and sighed. Crocodile was like a moth to the flame, and he was going to be smashed to pieces. However, Dustless's light seemed to be too gentle, or he was too noble and disdained to burn ants like Crocodile. You Marines are not taking the opportunity to beat us, are you? With a muffled snort, Bartholomew Kuma blew out a bone-piercing chill, and his momentum was accumulating. As long as Sengoku and Commander Kong don't give a reasonable explanation, he will take the opportunity to attack. Jinbe's position was in a neutral state. He turned a deaf ear to the sudden change. He didn't support the Marines or Tyrant Kuma. He looked coldly at everything that was about to happen. Hearing the words of the Tyrant, Sengoku and Commander Kong both frowned. Everything that Kuma did today was extremely abnormal. Sengoku even has a ridiculous illusion that this is another human being wearing the coat of a bear. His every move is the opposite of his usual silence. The bear rarely talks to outsiders. Today, he is unexpectedly more, and he also supports Crocodile, an alien. It was not his usual style at all. As I said before, the one who provoked Crocodile was Crocodile. That kid has only himself to blame for his current situation. If you want to see if this old man's fist can break your body, I don't mind giving it a try. Taking a step forward, Commander Kong sneered. A mere Bartholomew Bear, he really didn't put him in his eyes. He was confident that he could arrest this executioner who was covered in the blood of the Marine and bring him to justice. What's more, this is Mariewa, the territory of the world government. It's just that if Tyrant Kuma is killed, a series of consequences will be unbearable, and even the Marine will fall into the biggest crisis in history. If they secretly solve Kuma, Marine's reputation will definitely be ruined and they will be spurned by the world. Under the banner of Shichibukai, they deceived the big sheep into the tiger's mouth and then conspired to kill them. When the world knows what kind of shock it will cause, the justice accumulated by the Marine will also become a pile of waste paper. Everyone, we seem to be here to discuss the Shichibukai force, not to tear each other down. Jinbe suddenly said when he saw that there was a possibility of a misfire. Looking at Tyrant Kuma's eyes, there was a hint of persuasion. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. At this time, this is the territory of the world government. It's already shackled. At this time, it's tantamount to death. At the same time, Crocodile also walked over indifferently. His expression was no longer as arrogant as before. It seemed that he was not the one who had just been beaten. Damn bastard, I will definitely let you offend me. Wiping the blood stains from the corner of his mouth, Crocodile's heart was gloomy. Such a short contest also allowed him to thoroughly see the level of his strength. Perhaps in the face of the four seas and even some pirates in the New World, Crocodile can be calm. In front of the big man, he is just a chestnut in the sea. Just like Wu Chen from before, in a short period of time for an incense stick to burn, he was bashed to the point his head was sprayed with blood, and not to mention his entire body was covered in injuries. He'd lost the thing that was most important to his face and dignity. It's good that you're not dead. Glancing coldly at Crocodile, Sengoku was as quiet as stagnant water. Being able to accept these pirates does not mean that he can open his heart. Whether it is Crocodile, Bartholomew Kuma, or Jinbe, their hands are stained with the blood of Marines. The enemy is close at hand. Instead of killing the enemy, they have to come together to cooperate. Sengoku's heart can be imagined. Let me disappoint you, I am very healthy. Moving his stiff neck, Crocodile let out a crisp crackling sound. He was at ease. Wu Chen didn't kill him because his body was strong enough. Even though many of his ribs were broken, his combat power was still there. Not many people paid attention to this short little song. However, it had left a deep and indelible impression on the people present. Shao Chen had easily defeated Shao Crocodile, beating him until he was like a dead dog without any ability to retaliate. This had exceeded everyone's imagination. What is surprising is that Dustless's relaxed and calm expression, even the peddlers and the civilians can see that he did not use all his strength. Otherwise, Crocodile wouldn't be as simple as struggling at death's door. What is the purpose of that guy? He should join Shichibukai in the future, and that Crocodile is obviously an ambitious man. He will never do such a stupid thing as blindly challenging me. In the dark corridor, a black shadow silently streaked across. Under the bright moonlight, one could clearly see a pale face and deep, ink-like eyes that carried a faintly discernible blankness and doubt. Crocodile is meticulous. Every time he acts, the plan in his mind is also laid out. He is very cunning. As for the tyrant Kuma, Dustless's understanding is quite one-sided. He only knows that he is a man of few words. And what surprised Dustless most was that he joined the Shichibukai a few years later. All in all, Dustless's gathering of the Shichibukai is too strange, and it is the opposite of what he expected. Chapter 494. At night, the breeze was getting cold, the moonlight was like a plate, and the stars all over the sky dotted the dark night sky, which was beautiful. Inside the gloomy and desolate room, there was no sign of life. It was deathly still, making it seem eerily cold. Waves of cold air drifted out endlessly, giving people the pure feeling that this place was an iceberg isolated from the world. A vague outline can be vaguely seen in the darkness, and a faint wave of air exhaled from the nostrils from time to time. Crocodile and Tyrant Bear, these two men, suddenly, in the originally pitch-black space, there was a long sigh of confusion. A pair of shining eyes appeared, bright and deep. Even though the surrounding environment had been swallowed up by darkness, this pair of eyes could not be dyed black. There must be a demon when things are abnormal. The sudden appearance of Tyrant Bear has been out of Dustless's control. Although he is only an insignificant secondary character, in the end, he is also a small chess piece. This sudden character still makes him confused. One wrong move, the whole board falls apart. The role of Bear may not be so great, but it still makes Dustless stretch out his doubts. At present, Fleet Admiral Sengoku has come to Mariewa, and Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has also given him the order to immediately establish Shichibukai. At most, in these few days, this deformed pirate organization that can reasonably plunder the world will come out. There are only a few members today. As for Tyrant Bear, he is naturally among them, but Dustless clearly remembers that he joined Shichibukai in the future. The early Shichibukai did not have him as a latecomer. Now he appears like a ghost, and Dustless is not surprised. With his ability, it is impossible for him to find out that I modified Dorag's memory. With Bear's current strength, according to Dustless's guess, he can barely be equal to Admiral, and he is not even an opponent of Admiral. It is impossible to see that he can do something to Dorag. He raised his thoughtful eyes and frowned at the night scene outside the window. His pale face turned sharply, and his face changed faster than turning a book. In the blink of an eye, it changed into a cold little face. The night is long and the wind is cold. Do you want to stand outside the window all night? Dustless's thumb rhythmically tapped on the smooth stone chair, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The visitor had already guessed most of it. Even though the aura of the mysterious expert outside the window was well concealed, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water without leaving a trace, Dustless was still sharp enough to catch the slight changes in the air. Based solely on the movement of the body, no matter how flawless the concealment was, there would still be loopholes. It could even be said that there were hundreds of loopholes. Outside the window, everything was still silent. The bright moon hanging in the distant sky was still beautiful. Nothing had changed. The only difference was that Dustless's villa was shrouded in an oppressive aura. Not going to come out. Bartholomew Bear. After a while, Dustless realized that the person behind the scenes was still hiding. He smiled coldly and even directly called out the person's name. Kids nowadays like to be naughty. They have a bone-deep love for this kind of hide-and-seek game. Since you haven't shown yourself, I'll help you. After saying that, the dark void above Dustless's head suddenly became abnormally dazzling. It was so bright that one could not open their eyes. They could only look through the gaps between their fingers. the originally black sky had turned into a golden color. A large group of small whirlpools condensed in the void. All kinds of heavenly weapons slowly emerged from the whirlpools, revealing a sharp cold light that was enough to penetrate steel and iron bones. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, after a moment of silence, dozens of sharp weapons shot out in unison. The final outcome of any creature that was pierced was only death. Boom boom boom. The exquisitely decorated window instantly split into 4 or 5 pieces. The fragments that burst open were as light as a feather, dancing wildly in the sky. The dense holes were clearly visible, about the size of a fist. The wall trembled violently. Seeing that it was about to completely collapse and shatter into pieces, a wave of air burst out. Bang! Caw caw caw! An unusually strong wave of energy hit. All kinds of hard heavenly weapons were instantly corroded and dismembered, turning into a pile of golden powder. They were neatly piled on the ground, the glittering golden color was very beautiful. A black shadow of 6 or 7 meters no longer hid, and the majestic body that blended into the darkness drilled out. From the intelligence ability of the world government, you should know my ability. This kind of weak attack has little effect on me. Wanting to reward me is nonsense. Due to the excessive size of his body, every time he moved his feet, the ground would tremble rhythmically with him. If I want to kill you, I definitely won't use this kind of flashy attack. However, if I want to attract the fireflies, how can I not release gorgeous fireworks? Dustless teased as he looked at the figure covered in a black coat playfully. A certain golden glitter. If he knew that Dustless used his ability as a light to illuminate the way, he would be depressed to the point of vomiting blood. Looking closely, it was Bartholomew Bear. Looking at Dustless, Bear's meatball palm suddenly raised and aimed at Dustless's eyebrows. An unprecedented powerful destructive force condensed in his palm. Wu Chen, who was on the stairs, just smiled. He wasn't afraid at all. His body didn't even show signs of moving. He just sat there calmly, sizing up the bear from an overlooking angle. A sudden visit in the middle of the night. I thought you would say something that would interest me, but I didn't expect you to use force again. If I didn't guess wrong, you should be a cadre of the Revolutionary Army. Don't you pay attention to reason? It's better to use your mouth instead of your hands. Carefully observing Bear's body, Dustless shrugged, and his face was full of helplessness. It's really embarrassing to control my strength. If I accidentally kill you, Sengoku will definitely make things difficult for me in front of Gorosei, 5 elder stars. So, I advise you not to ask for trouble. Crocodile is an example. With his hands on the armrest, he sat leisurely on the stone chair and stared at Bear, who visited in the middle of the night. Then he closed his eyes and thought carefully in his mind. He had already guessed the reason for his visit. Sorry about today. Chapter 495. Even an ordinary person would be infuriated by the continuous barrage of mockery and ridicule. However, Bear's emotions did not waver from the beginning to the end, which coincided with the deceased's. His dark skin was relaxed, his breathing was even, and he was quietly holding an unknown book with a purple cover in his left hand. It was not difficult to see that Bear was extraordinarily calm. It also indirectly shows that in the face of Dustless, he has no pressure and can deal with it calmly. After a while, Bear's paw fell on Dustless, quietly examining Dustless. He is surprisingly calm, at least much better than Crocodile, and he is also a wise man. His pupils dilated slightly, completely ignoring the disadvantages of distance and environment. All kinds of subtle changes in Bear were played out in Dustless's eyes. The whole person is like a sculpture, and he has been maintaining this expression in front of him, giving the impression that he is quite old-fashioned. At this moment, Bear's paw suddenly raised, gathering a far more powerful impact than before. A white gas cover was very conspicuous against the black night. My purpose is the same as Crocodile's. The old-fashioned face was full of killing intent, and the white gas cover condensed by the paw also came out. Aiming at Dushless, it roared down without hesitation. Bear is a paramecia fruit user. The fruit can bounce off all forces. It can compress the air and create something similar to a cannon, including fatigue and all kinds of injuries and pain. Such a comprehensive and versatile fruit is rare, and it also shows that Bear's strength is extraordinary. Boom boom boom, with the roaring explosion, the stone chair Dustless was sitting on suddenly burst, like a tofu, and turned into white powder flying in the sky. The result of the impact on the human body can be imagined. Only a large deep pit was left at the place where the absolute impact occurred, and Dustless was nowhere to be seen. With the fragile body of a human, it seems that he may be directly crushed into nothingness. Seeing this scene, Bear's heart was not happy, but it was full of vigilance. His unchanged face was also slightly relaxed, and the subtle wrinkles between his eyebrows could not be noticed if he didn't pay attention. If he could be killed so easily, Crocodile wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state, losing all his dignity. Bear, I heard that the hardness of your body is beyond imagination. It's even harder than steel. I wonder if it's as magical as the rumors say. The ghostly sound spread out quietly, accompanied by a golden beam of light. Sensing the cold light behind him, the bear's paw simply condensed the white air shield again. Bang! Just as the beam of light was about to pierce through the bear, the air strangely exploded. The bear's majestic and tall body seemed to have teleported and disappeared without a trace. When it reappeared, it was behind Dustless. Its palm had already condensed an air shield and aimed at Dustless's thin and weak body. It was not hard to imagine what would happen if it hit a body of flesh and blood. Boom boom boom. Under the strong impact, Dustless's body was instantly slapped away. The sound of bones breaking could be clearly heard. He slammed weakly against the wall, leaving a large deep pit, and then fell to the ground with wounds all over his body. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead, and his breathing was weak and negligible. Although I am also a pirate in the emerging force of the 7 warlords of the sea, I am different from Crocodile. If you are not careful, you will die. Looking indifferently at Dustless, who had no breath on the ground, Bear reminded him out of goodwill. Boom! With a loud bang, a burst of white smoke emerged out of thin air. Dustless, lying in the deep pit, strangely turned into a piece of ravaged green wood. A black shadow rushed towards Bear, and a black iron fist directly greeted his face mercilessly. Bear was not afraid when he saw this, and his thick and strong arms also blasted out, choosing to fight head-on. Boom! One big and one small fist collided fiercely, and a wave of ripples visible to the naked eye appeared in the air. Under the black night sky, the two figures confronting each other also came into view. Really, it's so noisy in the middle of the night. Are they all kids who haven't grown up yet? In the brightly lit room, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, looked at each other and could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. It was difficult for such a big movement not to disturb them. However, the 5 chose to turn a deaf ear to what was happening outside. It's really despicable. Carefully observing Dustless, who was close at hand, Bear suddenly became talkative with a little irony. Whenever the enemy thinks that victory is in their hands, they will take the opportunity to defeat the opponent with the most ironic attack. This is you. This was the case before when Dustless and Crocodile fought. When Crocodile thought that victory was in his hands, what greeted him was not the sweet smile of the goddess of victory, but the fist that beat him up. The two fists were tightly attached to each other. Obviously, the strength was the same. Compared with the cautious Bear, Dustless was much more relaxed. In a stalemate, Dustless and Bear chose to retreat at the same time. A sneak attack is despicable. In other words, as long as I choose to attack openly, you can defeat me. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless asked with interest. Nodding slightly, the strength exposed by Bartholomew Bear in front of him is indeed beyond the previous crocodile. In particular, the teleportation just now was no worse than his speed of light. It was almost impossible to capture, and it was even more advantageous than the speed of light. After all, light can only move in a straight line, but Bear doesn't seem to have this restriction. He can choose any place according to his own will. Whether it is destruction or speed, Bear is better than Crocodile, who was defeated by Dustless. Although Crocodile is a little clever and cunning like a fox, Bear is not an idiot. The bounty has reached more than 100 million, and at the same time, he can be invited to be a great pirate of the 7 warlords of the sea. He is a perfect and special existence in all aspects. Bear's greatest confidence was none other than his heaven-defying teleportation, which meant that he could easily dodge any attack. In fact, Dustless didn't care about Bear's ability. The so-called teleportation principle is very simple. That is, by using the fruit's ability to compress the surrounding air and surround the body, one can do space teleportation, which coincides with the principle of Sabaody Archipelago. It's not difficult to deal with this ability, as long as the surrounding space is sealed in advance. In the end, Bear still uses the compressed air to move, relying on his body to move. It's not really crossing space. It's not my turn to use the 6 Crimson Yang formation. It's not interesting to solve the battle in an instant. I might as well play with you. Carefully observing Bear's expression from the beginning, Dustless's mouth curled into a playful smile, and at the same time, his eyes turned scarlet red. Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu. The ghost fire from hell strangely burned on Bear's body, and almost in the blink of an eye, it swallowed his whole body. Woo woo. Even Yi Xiong, who was a man of few words, cried out in pain in the face of this strange black flame. He hurriedly activated his ability, and a shockwave spread out from his body. The black willow, the wisps that were on the surface of his skin were instantly sent flying. Using the air to repel the Amaterasu, this principle seems to be similar to the Shinra Tensei. Even if Amaterasu was heaven-defying, it couldn't burn the invisible air. This was also one of the abilities of the meatball fruit, which could repel things on the surface of the skin. The ability of the meatball fruit was so heaven-defying, it could repel physical damage, including fatigue, using the unique ability of the air to repel. Even if the reflexes were sufficiently developed, it could repel the enemy's attack. Return the favor. Along with Bear's roar, the scattered black flames all sprayed towards Dustless, and there was no place to hide. Boring. Glancing at the incoming Amaterasu, Dustless's left eye suddenly spun rapidly, and turned into the reincarnation Sharingan. The 9 mysterious dark magatama could be clearly seen, and it was very mysterious. Dustless ignored the Amaterasu fire that engulfed his body in an instant, and his whole body was covered in a black flame coat. Spinning a cocoon. Seeing this, Bear's expression loosened, and he revealed a sarcastic smile. Spinning a cocoon. That's nonsense. A calm voice came out from the black flames, and then the fire of the Amaterasu gradually became smaller, revealing a pale face. His hair was still stained with the black flames, but it was slowly extinguished, and in the end, it was quickly swallowed by some mysterious force. Looking down at the torn corner of Bear's clothes, Dustless's lips curled into a scornful smile. Open your eyes and look carefully. This is the so-called teleportation, although there is a limit to the distance. In the dark space, Dustless suddenly disappeared, and his breath completely disappeared. Bear was left looking left and right, trying to find traces of Dustless. Your reaction is really slow. Of course, this is not your fault, because the heavenly hand force is such a strange technique. Suddenly, a golden photon sword appeared in front of Bear, and following it was a golden photon sword. When the sword fell, everything was over. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.